Hello humans, it's just Martine, and in today's video, we're going to try training for a readathon. Recently, I've been really fascinated with understanding training schedules, especially athletic training schedules for large feats like marathons, for instance. And I was thinking about it, and one reading marathon for sure is Wonderthon, because Wonderthon is the most intensely competitive readathon I participate in every year. It is just nonstop reading. Every second you have possibly to read in the day, that's what you're doing during Wonderathon. And the first year that Lizzie hosted Wonderathon, we were impressed by how quickly people started, but we were like, surely they will taper out as the days go on, but they didn't. And so Wonderathon is very much a huge volume of reading over a sustained period of time. It's like 2 weeks. So I asked ChatGPT to help make me a training schedule to prepare for Wonderathon this year. I've given myself 4 weeks of prep. I'm not going to follow this exactly, probably, because I was estimating in some of the goals that I said, and I'll be traveling during some of this prep, but the idea is here. And I have two main focuses. The first is to increase my ability to concentrate on a singular book for a longer period of time. I'm used to reading a lot in a day, but I can be pretty bad at sustaining my attention on just one book while I'm reading it. I like to read in like 10-minute increments and switch between books. So I'm really trying to increase the amount of time I can stay focused on a singular story. And I also want to work on reincorporating audiobooks into my everyday routine. I don't really love listening to audiobooks, and so for the past several months, I just really haven't. But during Wonderathon, I absolutely want to be listening to audiobooks because I want to do the most possible for my team, and you can listen to audiobooks while doing other things like cooking and cleaning. Those are the two things that I want to incorporate into my training. The way that ChatGPT has set this up, week 1 is a foundation phase. The objective is to just establish consistent daily reading habits and assess my current stamina. Week 2 is about increasing total reading time and testing varied genres. Week 3 is about simulating partial readathon conditions, so it's an endurance phase. And then week 4 is a simulation phase where I'm practicing readathon conditions. Now, the first time I asked it to make me a schedule, the 4th week was like a tapering phase, just like you would have in a marathon, and I thought that was smart so that I could hit the ground running for the actual readathon and not be burned out by the time I start. But then I couldn't get a printable version because I wasn't logged in, so then I had to log in, and when I gave it the exact same prompt, it gave me this different one with no tapering period. So this could bite me in the butt, and we'll just have to see how I feel during week 4. And that's why I say I'm probably not going to stick to this religiously, because obviously the point is so that I can be successful during the readathon, not so that I can just complete what ChatGPT told me to do. I can view this as day 1 probably, and I'm supposed to have 2 30-minute reading sessions. I've already read quite a bit today, but none that were like dedicated a 30-minute reading sprint. So I'm going to make sure that I get 2 of those in by the end of the night. And that's the goal for day 1 and 2, is to have those 2 30-minute sessions. Then an overall goal in the foundation week of about 2 hours of reading a day, which should be totally doable for me. So I'll be reading outside of those more dedicated times, but those sprints are to practice my concentration for a set period of time. So that's the goal, and I just hope this is a really fun way to get myself hyped for Wonderathon. So let's go. It's officially day 3 of my training program, and I just did my longest reading sprint yet. Today I'm supposed to do a 60-minute reading sprint and a 30-minute reading sprint. So I just sat and did my 60-minute sprint, which felt really good because I was reading a middle grade book. So I started this book, this sprint, and I read like a lot of it, more than half. Nice to feel like you're making progress. A recap of the first 2 days, I had to do 2 30-minute reading sprints each day, which was actually quite hard. I don't know if that's because I was reading pretty slow books while doing that, or that my attention is shot. I don't know. I did find it very ironic that for my sprint last night, I read a whole chapter in a book called Stolen Focus about how we've lost our abilities to sit and read a book for an extended period of time. It was a little on the nose, but I kind of enjoyed that. I'm just trying to really sink into the enjoyment of sitting for a prolonged period of time with one story and really getting into it. Also making sure that when I start a reading sprint, I have everything that I need with me, water, snack, etc., so that I don't have to interrupt myself to go get things. Also, there will be a challenge because for the next week or so, starting tomorrow, I will be traveling, and that always messes with my schedule. So sticking to the plan is going to be interesting. But today I just have one 30-minute sprint left to do. I'll do that tonight, and then I'm supposed to do this same thing tomorrow. So a 60-minute sprint and then a 30-minute sprint. And I'm supposed to be building up to doing a 90-minute reading sprint. So working on it. That's one of our goals this week. But so far, so good. I'm enjoying this. It's like a nice little switch up in my routine to help me be excited about reading right now. So all wins. I forget when was the last time I updated you, so I'll walk you through the end of week 1, but we're at the end of week 2 now of this training. I've been traveling, but I've been keeping up with things, so let's talk about it. Week 1 ended fine. The big lift for week 1, I guess there were 2 big things in week 1. I had my first 90-minute sprint. Those are brutal, by the way. And then there was one day where I had to read a whole book, but it was supposed to be like a shorter book. Now, I will say, when we're talking about short books, here I'm mainly picking quicker reads. I'm trying not to make them super short. I've been reading a short story every day for another video, and that's not counting as my short books here because I'm really trying to read books longer than that during Wonderthon. And I'm training for Wonderthon, so I'm trying to simulate those things, right? So the short book that I read the first week, it was a pretty regular length YA contemporary, okay? Not a heavy lift. I only had to read for like 3 hours that day to get it done, so perfectly fine. Week 2, getting a little brutal, really starting to feel it, especially after yesterday. So the first day of week 2 is 2 60-minute sprints. So we're just trying to increase the amount of time that I'm able to read consecutively, right? So a 60-minute sprint is already a push for me, but do that twice in a day. So I got that done. I had to do that for the first 3 days of the week. Days 1, 2, and 3. Wasn't too bad. I was at home, so it was kind of hard to find times where I had like a solid 60 minutes that I wouldn't be interrupted or have to go do something, but I made it happen. And then we hit day 4. That's when it gets really brutal because we had a 90-minute sprint and a 45-minute sprint. We did 190 and 145-minute for days 4 and 5. And even when you have literally nothing else to do, those 90 sprints feel like forever. I was on a bus for 10 hours, so doing a 90-minute sprint should have been a breeze. No, I wanted to get up and leave several times during that sprint. I mean, like before 60 minutes even got there. So I don't know what that says about me and my attention span for reading, but this is proving to be a challenge. And I don't feel like I'm getting better at it either. So that's great. We'll have to see how I feel by the end of week 4 in that regard. But although I have to say, we're getting to the point where it's going to tell me less and less to do these long sprints, and I'm really going to have to force myself to do that instead of reading in small chunks if I want to keep that up. So let's see if I have the discipline to do that. And then yesterday was an absolutely brutal day because I was supposed to read 2 short books. One of the books that I read was a YA contemporary. For some reason, I thought that counted as a short book, although it was 350 pages. So not necessarily a short book. As the queen of short books, I have to say, over 300 pages, not short. I don't know why I did that. It was a reread, so I thought that would make it easier. But doing that on top of another 250-page book made for a really brutal day, especially because yesterday was just a random Thursday. I had stuff to do for like a lot of the day. I had a solid work session with one of my classmates. I was reading until 11 p.m. I did get it done, but it was brutal. To be fair, I did some other things, right? Like I worked out for like an hour and didn't read during that time. So I guess there was other time in the day, but like that was really hard. Like I was keeping my eyes open. So I'm a little worried about the rest of this training program as it bumps up to like trying to read 3 books in a day. I'm not sure that that will be possible. And like I said at the beginning of this video, like I don't have to follow this exactly. It's just a template. So we'll see. Maybe I just need to reset my expectations for what I'll be able to get done during Wonderthon. But for right now, we're trudging ahead. So that was brutal, but today's a rest or light reading day. I actually have a lot that I want to read today. So it will still be better than yesterday, though, and I need to go ahead and look at like how much time I've actually spent reading this week and see if it's higher than the week before. Like if these sprints are actually pushing me to read more during the day. Week 3 is looking brutal. Not as bad as week 4, obviously, but we forge ahead. Week 3 is going. It's actually going fine. I'm really enjoying my rest day today. It's day 4. I'm supposed to have a rest day or light reading. It's late in the afternoon. I haven't read a single page so far. That feels great. I kind of like this strategy because it incorporates rest days, and I think maybe moving forward I need to be more mindful about incorporating rest days in my regular reading routine. I feel like I never do that intentionally, and I feel like it's helpful. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. Things are getting difficult on my like training reading days. Yesterday was another day where I had to read 2 books, and I was less miserable than the time in week 2 that I had to do that, just because I chose 1 ebook and 1 audiobook. So the audiobook made everything easier. By the end of the night when I was brain dead, I could play a little computer game while I listened. It also helped that I enjoyed both of those books. So the first time I did a 2 books in a day for this challenge, one of them was a 2-star read. So that was not helpful. Yesterday, the lowest rating I gave was a 4-star. So overall, yesterday felt better, but it still felt really hard. I'm thinking ahead to the week 4 days where I have to read, or I'm supposed to read, 3 books in a day. And what I just have to remember about those days is I can vary the length. We're just gonna have to see how I feel when I get there. And I need to continue to remember to use audiobooks. Just like in Wonderthon, I'm also relying a lot on like YA and middle grade books. I'm a relatively fast reader, but like not the world's fastest. I've recently been seeing some videos on like YouTube Shorts or TikTok of people being like, here's how many pages I read in an hour as a fast reader. And I don't know if they're lying to me, but you know, they make me look like a snail, which is crazy because I know I'm not a slow reader. Nothing wrong with being a slow reader. I'm just trying to tell you like where I am in terms of like how many books I can read a day in this plan and whatever. I think endurance is going to be my problem during Wonderthon. I've always made it through before, but I have to say my reading so far this year has been less than in the past 2 years. Not by much. I'm still reading an insane amount, but I notice the difference in like the number of hours that I read per month and the number of books that I read in a month. So I think Wonderthon is going to be especially challenging, and so I'm glad that I came up with this idea this year because I think this is the year I really need this training to get me back into the zone. Days 1 and 2 this week were 2 90-minute sessions and a 30-minute session. That went fine. I will say I was proud of myself because yesterday when I read the 2 full books, I found myself doing longer reading sessions of them more easily. So I feel like maybe that's just because I was enjoying the books. I don't know if it was actually a side effect of having practiced those longer sprints, but I was pleased about that. For the rest of the week, I'm reading 3 books over 2 days, which I like that build up actually. I think that's very smart of ChatGPT to do in this case. And then on day 7 this week, I'm supposed to read 1 longer book. They say long is over 350 pages. And just to give myself some credit, both days where I've read 2 books in a day, I've had at least 1 read that is over 350 pages. Yesterday I read a 400-page book, and in week 2 I read like a 358-page book as one of my reads. So that 1 longer book in 1 day should be totally fine, and I'm going to try to push myself, not for something crazy, not like a 600-page book, but I'll probably aim somewhere around 400 pages. We'll see what I can do. The point is just to keep training myself to read for long periods of time, and I think it's going well. It is hard, but I think it's an interesting experiment. People will be like, reading should be fun, and I totally agree, but you can ask athletes, and most of them would say they have fun with their sport, but that doesn't mean it's easy, right? And so this challenge is the same way, and any challenge I do, really. It's still fun, it's just hard. On we go. It is the Monday before Wonderthon, and we have some decisions to make. Week 3 of training went pretty well. I got through everything perfectly fine. Then I made an interesting decision, and this weekend I did a 24 in 48. I was like, that's going to be a real good test of like simulating the readathon conditions, which is supposed to be the main idea of week 4. In my training days, I did the 24 and 48 over the 7th day of week 3 and the first day of week 4. So like into week 4. And that went really well. And I proved to myself that I could do it. And then I started moving some things around. So I moved my rest day up to be right after the 24 and 48 because I was supposed to read 3 more books the day after. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like a great idea. And so basically I'm in a situation where like I'm supposed to read 3 books today. It's 8 p.m. I'm almost done 1 book. I'm 14% of the way into another, and I haven't started the 3rd. So obviously this isn't happening. This actually gives me a great excuse to talk through something that I've been thinking about as this week 4 situation has been approaching. And that's the difference between the original plan that ChatGPT first gave me when I first wanted to see if it could do this, versus the one I ended up with. I mentioned this earlier in the vlog, but the first time I asked for a schedule, the week before the readathon was a taper week, which is normal in running, for instance. If you're doing a marathon, you're not running your highest distances the week before the marathon, you're tapering off and running less so that you have the energy to run the full marathon on the day. So in this case, it had given me a taper week where I was reading less in the week before the readathon. Then when I had it redo it, it did not give me a taper week. It instead gave me a really insane week 4. And this whole time I've been wondering how I would feel when I hit week 4 and what decision I would make around week 4 about whether the exact way that ChatGPT told me to do it would serve me or not. Because here's the truth about training plans. You make training plans, but you have to listen to yourself and your needs and adapt them to fit those. So part of training is discipline. Part of training is being in tune with yourself and listening to yourself. And I know if I went through and tried to do this exact week 4 plan, I would get to Wonderthon, I would run into some issues. Not necessarily because I'd be sick of reading, but because this would not leave me enough time to get ahead on all other life aspects. And I would end up with a lot of other things to do during Wonderthon. I think I'd like to find a happy medium where I'm not doing this exact plan, but I'm also not reading. I'm conflicted about this for one reason and one reason only. When I do a challenge, I like to absolutely see it through to the letter. And so I feel a little wary going off script for this, but I think it's really good for me to do so for a couple of reasons. The first being, I think the way that I change this will serve me better for Wonderthon. And that's the whole point of this training program. Yes, it's meant to be content, so it's meant to be fun, and it's meant to be a challenge, but it's also genuinely meant to prepare me for Wonderthon, and I don't think the way that ChatGPT has decided to do that is actually going to work for me. And 2, I think it's really good for me because over the past couple months, I've been talking to you all more about my relationship with failure and also setting myself challenges that I may or may not be able to fulfill. And so I think this is a really good instance to reflect on that. Am I going to try to read a lot this week? Still, yes, because I want to keep up my momentum, and I also have some books that I want to finish before Wonderthon. But am I going to be upset with myself if my reading this week doesn't look exactly how ChatGPT wanted it to look? No, I'm manifesting that. I'm not going to be upset. So today I'm going to finish 1 book, and I'm going to keep trekking on the other book that I'm reading, and kind of what happens in the next days is up to me. It's not going to be I'm dropping this all situation. It's I'm going to try, but I think a better goal than reading all these books this week is to prepare my life for Wonderthon. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to keep up a good amount of reading while also preparing my life for Wonderthon. And that is what maybe I've been missing a little bit in this plan so far, which, to be fair, I did not tell ChatGPT to account for that in this plan, right? So it's not its fault. It was working with the parameters I gave it. Nevertheless, I think that's the decision that I'm going to make. So with that said, I need to go finish that book I was reading, but then I also need to go do all my habits for the day and stuff. I will only survive Wonderthon if I've taken good care of myself. I heard this said the other day. It was you don't drink water in mile 2 for mile 2. You drink water in mile 2 for mile 9. And that's what this week is for me for Wonderthon. I'm drinking water this week, metaphorically speaking, also literally, to prepare myself for Wonderthon. That's what a training plan is for. So that's my decision, and I'm sticking to it. It is Wednesday, which means I officially have 3 days until Wonderthon starts. which is crazy. And my updated plan is going well. I'm still reading a lot. Yesterday, I read 1 2/2 of books. And right now, I'm really trying to finish books that I'm in the middle of before I get to Wonderthon. You can't have read more than 50% of the book by the time Wonderthon starts if you want to count for Wonderthon. And I want every page that I read during Wonderthon to count for Wonderthon. So that's a huge reading goal right now. Other than that, I've been thinking about some ways that I need to get my life ready. So I'm having a productive work week. This morning's the exception because, well, I knew I wasn't going to do work this morning. I'll do some work later. But I've been trying to have a productive work week because I know I'll still have a lot of work to do next week because my students have papers due on Monday. Not my choice, but that's fine. But I want to do everything in my power to make sure I can take a little breather and be slightly less productive during Wonderthon. The other big goal is to have everything for YouTube ready to go. In an ideal world, I would have all 3 videos that will go up during Wonderthon edited and ready to go. This may not happen, but I'd like to make as much progress on that goal as possible. Part of the issue with that is that I'm behind on filming reviews, so I'm trying to do a couple every day. I filmed 1 TBR crime review, 1 12 TBRs review. I did an outro for another vlog, and now I'm updating you. So I'm definitely getting some filming done this morning, which is great. The 3 videos are my 24 and 48. Now I should have everything filmed for that I need so I can start editing. I have this video, which obviously won't be fully done until right before Wonderthon starts, but I'm hoping to wrap up this vlog with all my thoughts about this training process on Friday, and then maybe I can finish editing it on Friday too, so that it'll be fully ready for Wonderthon to begin. And then the third one is a TBR crime episode. I only have 2 books left to finish for that. I'm halfway through one of them, and I need to read all of the other. So that's kind of a question mark. So if any of them doesn't get done, it will probably be that one, but I want to make as much progress on it as possible. Part of that includes filming reviews because I'm really behind on filming the reviews for that. And part of that includes editing because even if I don't finish everything, I can edit what I have so far. Shout out to me, editing what I have. The problem is that in my brain, I don't only have 3 days in which to do this, but I do. So that's interesting. I've been filming this morning, but I haven't done any editing yet, so we'll have to see if I do that later. While still getting reading done. Yep, everything's totally cool and fine. I'm gonna be ready. It's gonna be great. Let's go. It is the day before Wonderthon begins. Actually, in some time zones, it has already started. And so obviously we're here to talk about how this challenge went and how I'm feeling going into the readathon. Overall, I think this was such a good decision, and I'm hoping it really pays off for me. Right now, I think it will. I've at least benefited a lot, I feel like, in the past 4 weeks from this training plan. Aside from week 4, where I made a lot of changes and I didn't read nearly as much, although looking at some of these days, I still read a ton. So really the perfect taper week, go me. One of the reasons I've been reading less at the end of week 4 is not because I don't want to read, but because I am scared to start books I can't finish before the readathon begins. So I'm just building up energy of wanting to start books and hoping having that going into tomorrow will be helpful for me. I read significantly more with this training plan than I would have otherwise, even knowing that Wonderthon was coming up. Maybe especially knowing that Wonderthon was coming up, because I feel like I had a chance of being very slumpy before Wonderthon. Instead, I've done the most reading that I've done all year. And I feel like I've built a really solid foundation to use for Wonderthon in that practice. A foundation of longer reading sprints, a foundation of reading multiple books in a day, a foundation of not getting burnt out reading. So all of those things are huge wins. Oh, and a foundation listening to audiobooks. I've listened to so many audiobooks over the past 4 weeks, and that is a win in this specific instance. Usually it would not be a win for me, but in this case, it is a win. The craziest week of this plan, the way that I did it, was week 3, because that was the endurance stamina phase, and I ended up reading for over 48 hours that week, which is bonkers. I don't even know if I'll be able to do that during Wonderthon, but having a whole week with that amount of reading is insane, especially considering that one of those days was a rest day where I only read 23 minutes. So clearly the rest worked though, because in the days following that 23-minute reading day, I read more and more every day for the next several days. So that I read like 6 hours and then 9.5 and then 12.5. So that rest did something, I'll tell you. The rest days were really informative in this. I think that's something that I wouldn't have thought about otherwise, maybe ever in my reading life, was very intentional rest days and what those do for my reading moving forward. I also really appreciated building up to the longer reading sprints, and here's what I've learned about that. It is way harder to do a longer reading sprint when you are not trying to bust through a specific book. On the days where I was instructed to read books instead of reading sprints, I ended up sitting there reading for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours fairly easily because I was so focused on how much progress I could make in that book instead of just waiting for 90 minutes to be up. That should work to my advantage during Wonderthon because the point of Wonderthon is not to sit and have 90-minute sprints, it's to finish books. So hopefully that will carry over well into Wonderthon. That also got easier once I threw in audiobooks. I feel like at the very beginning, I was trying to do my sprints with only physical or ebooks, and I think practicing that was good, but having at least one huge sprint a day of audiobook time, I think was good. I also think, like I mentioned, it elevated my foundation because the same thing in running, like the way to do it better is to increase over time the volume. So I was doing that with my reading, increasing volume to the point that in the past few days, I feel like I've barely read, but if you look at my stats, I've actually had some either regular or really great reading days. 2 days ago, I read for 6.5 hours, and in my mind, I've barely read this week at all. So I feel like I built that volume in a way that will be really helpful during Wonderthon because larger volumes will be an easier lift than they would have been otherwise. So overall, even if I didn't absolutely love or stay to the letter with the schedule that ChatGPT gave me, I think this was a really great idea, and I'm super excited for Wonderthon to begin and see how this training pays off. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below, would you ever train for a readathon? And subscribe for more bookish and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!